Welcome to Bilingual Book Buddies podcast and webcast. Bilingual Book Buddies is dedicated to promoting bilingual books for children and sharing insights from authors, illustrators, editors, agents, and anyone involved in bringing these stories to life. I'm Claudia Sloan. I'm one of three co-hosts of Bilingual Book Buddies. I'm also an artist who writes and illustrates books for children. I usually write themes of wellness, Latinx culture, my own life adventures, modern fairy tales, sports, and STEAM. In fact, my latest picture book is a book about sports. It was a dream come true because it's a book I got to do with my favorite NBA and WNBA basketball teams, the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury. And now I have the pleasure to bring forward my co-hosts, Alicia Salazar and Silvia Lopez.
Hi, I'm Alicia Salazar, children's book author and former teacher. I've written bilingual and English language books for young readers, including the Camila the Star series, Trolls, Loch Ness Monster, and my recently published picture book, Cascarones, an Easter Surprise. I'm passionate about stories that celebrate culture, spark imagination, and encourage kids to express themselves, especially in more than one language.
And I am Silvia Lopez. I am a bilingual Cuban American author living in Miami. After a long career as a school librarian, I turned my lifelong love of reading into writing for children. I have published about 20 picture books, including easy readers, nonfiction, folktale retellings, and biographies.
Okay, now I have the pleasure to introduce our guest. Gloria Amescua has been writing poems and stories since she was a child. She is proud of her Mexican American heritage. Her latest book, Abuelita's Song, illustrated by Maria Raman, is inspired by her son and granddaughters. Her picture book biography, Child of the Flower Song People, Luz Jimenez, Daughter of the Nahua, illustrated by Duncan Tonatiu, is a Pura Belpre honor author honor book. It also won 3 International Latino Book Awards and was an SCBWI Golden Kite finalist, a Rise Feminist Book Project Top 10 selection, and a co-winner of the Americas Award. The Spanish translation by David Bowles, Niña del Pueblo Floricanto, Luz Jimenez, Hija de los Nahuas, releases fall 2025. Gloria was born and lives in Austin, Texas.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for being with us, Gloria. And I'm the lucky one that I get to ask the first question today.
Okay.
My question is, you've been writing since childhood. What kinds of stories or poems did you write as a young girl? And how did your voice evolve into the one we see in your books today?
Well, I was influenced in a strange way. We really didn't have very many books in my home when I was growing up. My mom would buy little golden books, sometimes, and we would at the grocery store we would get them. But uh, we had neighbors that I didn't know it at the time, we were renting from them, but I thought, it was our home. I didn't know any better. But they would give us their newspaper after they'd read it, very nicely folded. And my father milked their cows, so that was another thing. He would bring some milk and also that. And they gave us a set of English and American poetry, 10 volumes. And I still have most of them. Somehow one volume got, but it had a poem on the back that absolutely blew my mind. It was by Edward S. Markham, and I was about 9 at the time. I couldn't understand the poems that were inside. I mean, I looked at them and, John Keats and all of these, I couldn't understand them. But this 4-line poem by Edward S. Markham called Outwitted just showed me how much you could say in those few words. And I don't even know if I can because sometimes I remember all the lines and sometimes I don't. But it was called Outwitted. He drew a circle that shut us out. But love and I had wit to win. No, heretic, rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. And I may not have known what heretic and flout meant, but I got it. And I thought, wow, you can say all of that in a few lines. And that is what made me start writing. Not anything in school. I don't remember ever even having the opportunity to try to write poetry in schools. Now it's more, thankfully, more common. I mean, I'm from way back, okay? So nothing in school got me like that, maybe until high school. But I'm going to read you because this is the little poem I wrote after that. And it kind of
Please do.
shows it's, I'm a brown-eyed sunflower sprouting from the earth, brown not from the sun, but from my birth. And that was my little poem. And I don't have it from where I wrote it. I had a little notebook that I wrote things in, but I don't have it. But I remembered that poem, and I have written it down, since then I wrote it down at some point. But I think that that one shows that I was aware of the things that were important and how, my skin color and my culture and so on made me different from other people, but a lot, you know what I'm saying. But I think that that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I wrote other poems that had nothing to do with my culture. I, I wrote a play, I think it was maybe it was ninth grade or something, and showed it to the teacher, and she had someone else read it because I was extremely shy, so shy. So it was about a New York tenement apartment, and what did I know? Goodness, nothing. And so that was like not the thing to do, but at least I was, writing. And then as I went on, I wrote poetry in college. Just never did anything with it. I was too afraid to take a creative writing course that I could have taken, but I didn't. So it was just a long time of basically writing poetry. And then as an adult, I started, I got involved with, I took some courses, like we had groups in Austin. I'm from Austin, Texas. And so a person who became a friend started a Hispanic poetry group and got involved in that. And so we did readings, we did, lots of different things. We made little publications. We were more involved. And so that kind of helped me. Um, and then children's books came about when I had grandchildren, had two granddaughters. And I tried writing a children's book for them. And I realized, yeah, I was an English teacher, but I don't know how to write picture books. And so then I started taking some courses from the Writing Barn. I don't know if you're familiar with the Writing Barn, but that's something that was created by Bethany Hegedus in Austin, and that really got me going on the children's books, and wanted to use that to bring more awareness of the culture and so on that I had been trying to regain as an adult.
It's wonderful to see how that one poem influenced you and how we can also think in terms of what we write or something short or small can influence a child of today and have them on their journey. So thank you.
Picture books are like poetry. There's a lot in between the lines.
Yes.
A lot that you say without saying it, and it's really a skill that not a lot of people have.
No. And you brought up that point that you had written so much, you had been an English teacher, and yet you felt that you needed some guidance in writing children's books, which is what we were talking about just a little while ago, that people think, oh, well, you do it in 5 minutes. No, it's very, very hard. It's
Very.
the hardest thing to do. I think I could write a novel and go to town with long sentences, but when you have to remember your audience and you have to synthesize, it's very hard. So thank you for that answer. That was a great answer.
Well,
Well, I have the pleasure of asking you the second question, a
Okay.
privilege. And it deals with your book, Abuelita's Song. And you said it was inspired by your son and your granddaughters that you just mentioned. Can you share the story behind the lullaby and how it became the heart of that book?
okay, I will gladly do that because it is so personal to me that it it touched my heart so much. Let me just kind of tell you what actually started this. When I had my son, he was a baby, and I wanted to sing a Spanish lullaby to him. I wanted him to hear the language of his heritage, and I didn't know any. And I really don't remember that my mom knew any. I don't think that my mom sang to us, really. I remember something my father sang only because he sang it to the grandkids, and it didn't have any words really. It was just this little rhythm. So I checked the library. I lived in a small town in Texas at the time where I was teaching, and they didn't have any. And it was before the internet. So I made one up just on the spur of the moment, just made one up and sang it to him, and then would vary it, here and there, would vary it. So, and as he grew a little older, he would ask for it sometimes. And so I would sing it to him, of course. And then one time I was visiting, he's grown, I'm visiting, and at the time my granddaughters were still in two cribs, although the older one probably should have been in a bed, but she was still in a crib. And I had said goodnight to them and closed the door, and then I heard them singing this song I had made up, which meant my son had remembered it and sung it to them. That just, you know, as a mom and grandmother, that just gets you. It's just, I couldn't believe it. So I was just thrilled. So then we would sing it. The book is fictionalized, so it's, slightly different, but it's basically the story of how I was surprised that he had remembered it and that he had taught it to them. And he had, like I grew up basically just with English, even though I did my best to throw some Spanish in here there, but I didn't do a very good job of it. So his learning of Spanish was basically school learning, like mine was. So yeah, that's the story behind it, and the fact that then, even as they were growing up, they remembered, my granddaughters would remember the song too. So that just is, yeah, it, it's very personal to me. So
Very personal, and sometimes very often those are the best.
Sort of connected to what you were talking about. You said you don't always see yourself as a bilingual author. Can you talk about your journey of reclaiming your heritage and incorporating Spanish into your writing?
yes, I mean, I think when I was in like in elementary school, I just felt so embarrassed that I didn't speak Spanish like many other Mexican American girls and boys that were in my classes. And I know why as I was older, I know why my parents did that, why they spoke to us in English. It was a time period. There were no bilingual classes. I mean, this was in the 50s and that I was in elementary school. So, and my older brother he's 7 years older than I am. There's no one in between us and me. And then I have a younger brother, like 3.5 years younger. So he spoke Spanish when he went to school. And my parents had been advised by our neighbors to send him to a school in Austin rather than to the one in the district we were in, which was, I'm just going to say it was Round Rock, a little town at the time, very little town. And part of it was because he would have gone to a Mexican school. Part of it was because I don't think there was a bus, and we lived a long way from the school too. But they paid a tuition, and he went to an Austin school, and he was the only little Mexican boy in the class. And he was in a school near where my father worked, so he took him, and he had a hard time, you know. But I think all of that influenced that. I remember my mom telling me that she was afraid we would get mixed up with two languages, which is not true. It's so good for anybody to speak more than one language, and kids learn so easily they can do it. But that's just the way it was. And I would hear them maybe early in the morning speaking to each other in Spanish, and I'm going way too long, but as I said, I'm worried I have to cut back. But anyway, uh, so, and my dad was from Mexico. He was from Michoacan. So, you know, but he had been in the U.S. a long time and he knew English. And my mother was born in Texas, but she knew some English, obviously. So they decided to speak to us in English. And then in school, it was where I felt like the other girls, because usually we hung around with the girls, not the boys, that were speaking in Spanish, thought maybe I was stuck up or something because I didn't speak in Spanish and I didn't speak it well and I was too embarrassed and all of those things. So it's really not until I mean, I took Spanish in school and I knew some Spanish just from kind of overhearing my parents. And I took it in at university and I, you know, s- started becoming just more interested in learning more about the history, the culture, and so on. And that just kept evolving as I was an adult. And I feel it's so important because that's why I'm writing some of the other books that I write that are biographies that kids know the history behind the efforts that people have gone to hold on to their culture and their language, such as Lucy Menace and another book that I have coming. Um, because I think it's important for kids to be proud of their heritage, to be proud of their culture, to know the language. And it's really, you know, particularly in the US and probably everywhere, there's always a mixture of, a heritage language or a native language with English. And I kind of want to convey that in my books too, that there's a mixture. Not always, of course. Some people are fluent in both languages, and I wish I were one of them. I sort of am, except in speaking. I mean, I can read Spanish pretty well. I can read it really, really pretty well, because I studied it. Yeah, so
That's wonderful that you took the initiative and put the effort to study it and to reclaim that part of your heritage. So you took control.
yeah, yeah.
Fabulous. Well, and this question kind of relates to that. I mean, obviously, as a child and even as a parent, you didn't have much of access to bilingual books. So, what do you think today's children, gain from seeing both languages on that page?
Oh, so much because it connects them to their family and the greater mix of our country. Because, I mean, not just the kids who have like a, a background of Spanish, it could be, or Chinese or whatever, but all the other kids who are enriched by books that have other languages there with it so that they can learn, so they can be part of the greater community that our country is. And it's also important because it helps people who speak that language or who have a certain cultural heritage. And actually, I think everyone has a cultural heritage. They may not think they do, but everybody does. Um, so it makes it where they feel seen. I know that I would have really loved to have had some books that showed someone like me or that showed some Spanish in it or that what really saddens me as I think back on it is that I didn't even question the fact that everything was in English, everything, all the characters in books, TV, movies were white. What happened to the blacks, to all the Latinos, I mean, all the other people that make up our country that weren't
They
there?
were not there.
It to me, it is such a shame that it's taken us so long to get here. And now, we've had people writing these books, publishers who are publishing it, librarians, teachers, parents who want them, and we're having this backlash. And I know that's another question that will be coming up, but I'll just stop
Yes.
there because it's so important.
But I'm glad
Very.
you mentioned the media, the movies, the books, and so forth, and how different. My background is in engineering, so I'm a Trekkie, Star Trek, and that for one of the things that I loved about that show was precisely the diversity. It was
Yes,
even the very early versions of that, the episodes, they were very diverse. So they were way ahead in the future.
they
But
were.
it's yeah, so I'm glad you're mentioning here. I think
I
that,
love it too. I love Star Trek too
oh, so you're a
because,
Trekkie.
yeah, because it did
Can
too.
you do it?
See, I don't know my hand. Yeah,
Live long and prosper.
Long
There
and
I
we
used
go.
to do it.
prosper.
I mean, expect the
I
kids to
always
do
try.
that
Oh,
all the
look
time.
at Alicia. She can do it
you
perfectly.
can do it
And
perfectly.
Sylvia too.
There we go.
We're
Oh,
all Trekkies here.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I think we're all Trekkies. And you know what? It's what Claudia just brought up. We're all Trekkies because we love the science fiction part of it and the
hmm
excitement and but we did not realize, and this is something that Gloria just said. Um, Claudia realized, and she said that there were different characters in that show. But Gloria said something very interesting just now. We grew up not really realizing that we were not represented
yeah,
in books and in the media. We just accepted it. I
accept
mean,
it.
it was just something that we just didn't even think about. I don't even think our parents thought about it. Maybe some people may have, but I think the majority of people just did not realize that this was not a homogeneous country, but it looked like a homogeneous country. That the TV, the first TV shows, Leave It to Beaver and all of those old ones, they were all
Oh,
cookie cutter. They were all cookie cutter, but they weren't our cookies.
no,
No,
no.
they were not our cookies. But nobody thought much of it. And I think one of the problems is that a lot of non-white children want it to be like that.
hmm
And and you kind of like said, why am I different? I don't want to be different because I want to be just like that. But that was what the media portrayed. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Gloria. That was a great point. And I have the next question. Your award-winning biography, Child, excuse me, of the Flower Song People, has
Yeah.
deeply touched many readers. Yes, there it is. What drew you to Luz Jimenez's story, and why did it feel important to tell that story to children?
I came across, I was at a this is before writing any children's books. I was at a poetry symposium at the University of Texas. Um, I was a member of Canto Mundo, which is a Latinx poetry group. And I came across the a little pamphlet at the Harry Ransom Center, which is just, it has all kinds of archives and stuff. And I saw this little pamphlet about Lucy Menace, and I read it and I thought, I've never thought about the life of the model in this artwork unless it's, Marilyn Monroe, and yeah, one of these, celebrities that somehow is being painted by someone. So her life was just so interesting that I kept the pamphlet. I thought to myself, I have to write about her. But I didn't at the time. I just kept it in a file with with that pamphlet. So then when I started taking the classes at the Writing Barn, the second course, we had to choose 3 out of 5 types, and one was a biography. And that I said to myself, I'm going to write about Lucy Menace. And so what drew me to her is that despite all the pressure that the government was putting on the indigenous people to lose their native language, just like in the United States, the same thing had been happening, to lose their indigenous language, their clothing, their traditions, the same things, and speak Spanish, do all this stuff. I connected to her life, and I thought she didn't let them squelch her language or her traditions. She helped us learn about the mythology, that the stories that she'd grown up learning from, the elders. And she spoke Nahuatl beautifully, also spoke language Spanish because she went to school and learned Spanish. Um, she just was an amazing person. And when I first started thinking about writing about her, I thought, okay, there's this part where she's a model and she's important for all of this. And then there's this part where um, she meets through the artist, she meets all these anthropologists and scientists and so on, linguists, and she's telling them the stories that she's learned. She's telling them the language. They're writing it down phonetically. It wasn't even written, there was no alphabet for it until the 30s. Yes, that's loose. And oh my gosh, I thought, how am I going to bring this together? And well, I thought I had to choose one or the other, and I thought I can't. They're both so important. And the way I brought it together was thinking about how she really wanted to be a teacher as a child. And the Mexican Revolution just squelched that totally because she didn't go past 5th grade, and she had to leave the whole village was destroyed. And so they went to Mexico City, and her father died. So she was responsible for, she was the oldest daughter, responsible for helping her mom. And so that's how she got into modeling. But I used the teacher because she was teaching through both. I used that as a kind of connecting thread. And I'm so glad I finally got that together in my head because it worked. It worked. And
Yes, it sure did. It sure did. Absolutely. It's lovely.
I love that story. And, it made me think about the fact that she was probably one of the earliest tourist guides in the world when you think about
yes,
it. Or at least,
yes.
at the very least, in the Latin America.
Yeah, she was, and that's where she did tours for the artists. She did tours for the anthropologists and all these people, and they learned so much from her, and she learned from them too. But
Yes.
I mean, it was a mutual thing. But a lot of it came natural. The modeling came naturally to her because what she was modeling for them was the emphasis that they had on the indigenous culture and so on. So. Yeah, I mean, it was I just loved her story, so I had to write about her. I just felt totally connected, even though it wasn't what I did, it was I look to her as a role model for the rest of us, you know. Yeah. Yeah.
Alicia, is that yours?
The next question is mine. The Spanish edition of Child of the Flower Song People, translated by David Bowles, comes out this fall. What does it mean to you to see this story now available in Spanish?
Well, I am going to show you because it's not out yet, but these are my copies that they sent me. I'm so happy. Niña del Pueblo de Floricanto, Luz Jiménez, hija de los Nahua. I have been waiting for this since I first talked to my editor. When my agent and I and my editor Howard Reeves at Abrams Books for Young Readers talked, and I said to him, as I was questioning him, I really want this to be translated into Spanish. It would be great if it's also translated into Nahuatl, but I want it to be translated into Spanish. And he said, well, we don't do that here. It would be someone else that would have to, take it on and so on. I mean, it could happen. But also, I mean, that didn't make me say, oh, well, no, I don't want you to publish it. But I thought, okay, well, so there's a possibility. And also, Duncan Thonatio, he was showing it to him, and Duncan had said he liked it and so on. And I thought, well, I got to go with this. But I had so many people after it was published asking me too, is there going to be a translation in Spanish? And I'd say, I really hope so, but I have no idea if it's going to be because it came out in 2021 and it's now 2025 and it's not going to be out till November. But it's happening and I am so thrilled, so thrilled. And Luz Jimenez, I did a lot of research, and one of the people that I relied on was her grandson, her only remaining grandson, and his name is Jesus Villarreal Villanueva. I suddenly went blank. Okay, I'm going to send him several of these because he deserves to have it in Spanish. I sent it in English, but it, it, it's so needed. It's so needed.
And I just wanted to share very briefly that we actually had Duncan Donatiu in
Oh,
this show already, but we love the artwork that he did, and I'm so happy to
oh,
see that you're retaining his artwork in the Spanish
oh
version.
yes. Oh
So it's
yes.
coming the whole piece together, just translated, and
Oh,
that's wonderful.
the other thing I have to say is my agent and I really wanted David Bowles to translate it. We put his name forth even before they started doing Spanish versions. I think they were thinking about it and so on because he's such an expert author, poet, a translator. I mean, and Nahuatl, he is like a total expert. I love David, and I'm so glad that he translated it. It's
That's
just makes my heart
awesome.
happy.
I can't
Yeah,
wait to read it.
yeah.
And yeah, that's well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, that's excellent.
And I have the
Okay.
next question. Oh, Sylvia, were you going to add a comment?
No, 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 no.
Oh, okay. Just
No,
making sure I didn't interrupt.
yeah, no, 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 no. Just go ahead.
So many of our listeners are teachers, librarians, and of course, caregivers. In these times when diverse books, including bilingual books, face challenges, what words of encouragement would you offer to them?
Well, the main one is that they're not alone, that there are so many people who are fighting against the book bans, and authors are doing their part. I know I am. And I'm not the only one. I mean, there are all these different organizations, PEN America, Freedom to Read, uh, I think that's the name, and Authors Against Book Bans. There, and I'm connected to all of those, and I've been going to the Texas is one of the ones that has been passing bills and trying to pass bills. And so I've joined others who went to speak or deliver a paper. I was, see, too shy. I did not speak, but I'm very proud of those who did. And teenagers spoke. It made me kind of go, maybe next time I need to get up there and say something because it is. I mean, I have called, I have emailed multiple times on multiple issues that we all care about, but particularly on the book banning. And unfortunately, one of the bills did pass, but they know that there are a lot of people who oppose it, and that is having a committee appointed for a district, which the districts, I think, have the option to do this, but the committee of not teachers, not librarians, but the public will be reviewing and deciding what books should or should not be in the school libraries. I mean, we worked hard to not have that happen, but you know, it's really hard. Now, my words of encouragement are we are in this together. Publishers, most of the publishers are still behind the books that are being written that show diversity, that are bilingual. They are uh, with us in all of that. And authors know how important that is. We have, you know, a lot of people with you who are working to keep the progress that we've made that is so important for kids. I mean, you are in all kinds of ways, LGBTQ plus, I mean, all of them. It is, you know, we need to recognize our world does not revolve just a small group of people who think they know what everybody else should be reading. I'm just so upset about that, that I you know, I'm as busy as everybody else, but I have to do something and encourage others to do something as well, which I do.
Good
Thank
for
you
you,
for that.
Gloria. That's very good to hear, and it's wonderful to know that that you are behind this. And one of the things that you mentioned is, yes, it's very sad that a lot of the committees that are in charge of deciding what materials and which books are going to be acceptable and which ones are not, and unfortunately, there's federal funding involved in that, are not educators. They're not authors, they're not writers, they're not publishers, they're not teachers or librarians.
Nope.
And I mean, I would not put my health in the hands of a group of people that are not medical professionals. Would anybody? I mean, if I had to make a decision about an operation, I would like to know who wrote the book about that operation, that they're doctors.
That's
And
right.
and this is what's happening. This is what's happening. I'm sorry, Claudia, go ahead. I
Oh, I was just
interrupted you.
cheering you up, saying that's right. I totally
That's right.
agree. That's
That's it.
what we want experts to do what they do best.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
librarians and teachers, they have so much training, experience to make those they know their kids. It's just a shame. And
They're excluded. Yes, they're
yeah,
excluded.
right.
And I'm going to change tack here because my next question is a little different. It says, you've mentioned that it's okay not to speak a language perfectly. What helped you move, gain confidence when it came to using Spanish in your creative work? What helped you move from not feeling confident about that to feeling confident in using some Spanish or Spanish themes in your creative work?
Well, there's several things. one was reading Carmen Tafoya's Sonnets of a Human Being, or For a Human Being, I may have it slightly off, and reading what she had written using Spanish in her poetry, as well as mainly English, but using it. And it just worked so well. And I thought, I could do that. I could do that. I could try to do that. I don't have the confidence you think I do, but that and also going to, we did not go to Mexico very often. I went once when I was 9 because my father's mother wanted to meet her grandchildren. And then much later, I took my parents and my son went with me to, it was in Michoacan, Tanuato, a little town. And that's where the family sort of originated from that area. And I met family. And then I didn't go again until um, I took them with my parents for their 50th anniversary. And then my parents translated a lot, but I did understand and I did attempt. And they were so glad that I attempted Spanish, that I tried, and they were accepting. So that was important. And then when I went back about 7 years ago, I went by myself because they really wanted me to go for a big celebration, Cien Años de Cristo Rey, big parade and all kinds of things going on. So I went, and they were just, if I didn't know a word, we worked around it and it was fine. So I thought, well, here are people who speak Spanish, and even though they learn English in school, they do like most other people, they don't use it, so they are not wanting to use it. It was not a tourist town, so I had to speak Spanish, okay? So, and I was glad, and they were glad, and that gave me confidence. So these books came before that, but I think it was seeing it, and it wasn't just Carmen's book, but other books as well, um, that I started seeing words in other languages being used, and the context gave it. Now, I will say that there are times when I am not sure, and I'm part of a group. I don't know how many of you are in it. It's Kidlit Latinx on um, Facebook, and I will ask, or I will ask my friend Liliana Valenzuela, who is a translator and a poet. I will ask her. I mean, she's translated like for Julia Alvarez and a lot of other people. But I know she knows, and also the group, because things are different in different countries. The Spanish is different. That's also very hard to pick a word that is more in common. So I can't say that I'm confident, but I just try it. And then if I think, I'm not sure, then
And you ask.
I ask. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what
But I think
that's what
it's,
a community is all about.
yeah. Yeah. And also, I try to include some Spanish when even the majority of it is in English, because that's where we are in the modern world. As kids are grow up in the US, schools in English basically, if they, speak English at home. So they still use some Spanish, but it's kind of just in there a little bit, and there are all kinds of versions depending how fluent you are in both languages, and that represents the way the world is now, and that's what I want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's language too,
Yeah.
because like your point about not having to speak perfectly,
Mm,
uh, that's how you learn a language, first of all.
yeah.
You have to be brave enough to speak it. And it also exposes kids to different languages around the world. I mean, we're kind of isolated in the United States. In Europe, you go 3 miles and somebody's speaking a different language. And
Mm,
So yeah, like I think it exposes kids to different cultures, to different things that if they don't travel, they don't really get to see it much.
Yeah. Yeah. If you go to a touristy place, though you hear people passing by and you're going, what language are they speaking? What language are they speaking? But no, it's our world is not really monolingual. It really is.
Oh,
And it's
no.
not just, you know, like the 50s and 40s, depicted in media. No, I'm going to mention this too because I thought about it earlier and then I didn't mention it. Newscasters were always men. You didn't see women.
Yes.
That took a long time also to get women in those and the roles of women in all kinds of books and media and all that. So I just thought I'd mention that since.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I was watching a show about astronauts last night, and all the pictures of the first astronauts, they were all men and they were all the same age
Hmm.
and they were all the same height. They all look very similar to each other, as opposed to now, this new crew that is training to go to Mars, half of it is women, and it's wonderful. And they're from all different ethnic groups. It's terrific to see that. I'm always very happy to see that. It's about time.
Hmm.
It's about time.
Way
Yeah.
overdue, I would say. I have personal lived experience on that. When I first graduated from college, my very first job as a software engineer, I was the only woman and, of course, the only Latina in a
Hmm.
10-man team. And so, yeah, the definitely different times than today. But of course, back then it wasn't cool to be an engineer because they used to call us geeks and all kinds of things, right? Nerds and so forth. But right now it's cool to be a geek and nerd. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it has changed all around.
Geeks rule the world. Geeks rule the
You
world.
definitely experienced that. It certainly did.
And
Hmm.
if you're old enough, I was 20 years old before they changed the rules that a woman could apply to get a credit card. I would not have been able to apply for a bank loan to purchase an apartment until 1970, early 70s. So I was already a grown woman before I would have had to get either a husband, a brother, or a father to co-sign. I mean, can you imagine a girl today?
Hmm.
And I'm very happy to say that I have two daughters that, they can't imagine a world like that. Even as children, I always told them, I made them in that frame of mind where they said, well, why is Snow White waiting around for the prince? Why is she just sitting around? And I'm going, okay, I think I overdid it with this one here. But
Hmm.
it's true. It's true. Things are changing, and they're changing for the better in that sense.
Yes.
And like you're saying, Gloria, in so many things, maybe we're kind of backtracking, and let's hope that that changes. But I'm so happy to hear that you are active in that, to your ability and to everyone's ability. I think it's wonderful that people know that there's people behind them, and that not everybody shares the thoughts of others.
I, I
So,
think I think before we leave this conversation, I just want to throw it out there, the importance of not taking for granted the freedoms that we, women, diversity, everybody have today, because so many people fought really hard, so many lives were given in trying to get those freedoms. So careful what you wish for for anybody else that doesn't understand or that is trying to go back to the way
right.
things were,
Yeah.
because we do have so many freedoms and privileges today
Yeah.
that sometimes do get taken for granted.
Yeah. I want to add because I remember when my mother was always, I guess, proactive or not proactive. That's not the right word, but she wanted to do things, and my father was always reticent. For instance, she wanted to buy some land, and she could not buy land on
Mm.
her own. Uh, it took, I think, until the early 70s that
Yeah.
she could buy land on her own. My father would never, he was a risk averse, but my mom was like, I want to have some land. But then after she bought some, he would go out there with her,
Yeah,
work on it and all that. But, the thought that she couldn't do that
yeah.
on her
It's
own
unheard of. It's
is,
unheard of today.
yeah,
At least in our country, it's
yeah.
unheard of. And we just have to make sure that we protect that right and keep it for our girls and our daughters and all our children, because our boys will marry women and we
Mhm.
want them to marry women who are of that mind.
Mhm.
We want them to make sure that our daughters-in-law and our granddaughters and grandsons are of that mind, that accepting,
Mhm.
so I think that's and I think going back to books, which is what we're doing today with your interview, I think that's why a story like this was important then when she did it, and it continues to be important today. It hasn't lost any of its impetus, it hasn't lost any of its importance.
Mhm.
And so I think that's why your editor and the people who have rewarded this book with awards, have realized that it is a story that transcends time. It's just as important today as it will be in 20 years. If we play our cards right, it will continue to be. So, Gloria, this is a wonderful, we're having such a wonderful conversation here. It's just marvelous.
That's why it's such an award winner.
And
Thank you.
that's our purpose too, Gloria. That's why we, the three of us, are here.
And
We
I'm
are here to promote exactly what we're doing with you. So,
And
yes.
I'm so glad that you invited me to be part of it because I truly believe we've got to have the diversity that books can have and do have now and that are important for everyone. I actually believe that picture books are for everyone.
Everybody.
When I was
Yes.
teaching high school English, not at the beginning, I mean, I taught for 19 years and have a total of 33 years in education in various positions, but um, the the kids, I had taught mainly sophomores, I also taught seniors, but mainly sophomores, and I would use picture books to
Yes.
introduce a theme that we were going to read in some other books, a novel, and so on, and they would gather their chairs around with their desks, and they loved being read to. I mean, I didn't do this all the time, but I used it in so many different ways, and I was for Round Rock. I ended up retiring from Round Rock ISD as a language arts coordinator for the district, and that was using picture books was part of the training for teachers at whatever grade level because there
Yes.
is so much you can introduce in a shortened form, and there are so many levels. I mean, picture books, the artwork, for instance, adds other levels. I mean, just so much. And there, yeah. Okay, I stop. I'll stop.
Oh, no, it's wonderful what you're saying, because we have had this discussion before with other authors
Yeah.
and among ourselves, that it's kind of my motto everything I always wanted to know, I learned in a picture book. And you go from there. Yeah, sure, you go from there, but your first little introduction to a topic is in a picture book, and emotions and feelings and family dynamics and so many things can be found in a good picture book. So no, we hear you. We hear you. I'm so glad to hear that that you used it with your high schoolers,
Did.
because I've seen that before. I used it with my fifth graders, that the teachers maybe thought they were too big to be listening to picture books, but I used it with them in the library. And, we moved on from there to do
Yeah.
research, but that was the introduction, and that caught them immediately.
Right.
Well, anyway, so I'm going to stop, and I think Alicia has the next question, right?
Yes, and this question kind of extends our conversation. Themes like identity, social justice, and emotional connection are strong threads in your books. What do you hope young readers walk away with after reading your stories?
I hope they walk away with, particularly from the biographies, pride in themselves, connection to culture and uh, language, and understanding that there should be respect for everyone, no matter what their background is and so on, but mainly feeling good about yourself. And Abuelita's song is somewhat in that I have in my author's note, why I made up the song, which is because I didn't know any Spanish lullabies and couldn't find any. So part of that is you can pass on traditions. You can also create traditions of whatever type. I mean, I wish I had learned to make tortillas like my mother. Tried it. I somehow can't do the round. Anyway, but I wish I had learned to make tamales well. I helped her, but still didn't actually get that. And I wish so much now that I had. And she's gone. And, my aunts are gone. And so, yeah, I can still learn. I know I do have cousins who know how to do that. And um, yeah, it's just so important, but you don't always know it when you're a kid.
Well,
Traditions are so important.
if you do
Yeah.
decide to take up on learning tortillas, just tell yourself when you're working on it that they don't have to be perfectly round.
Yeah,
Not like they're gonna roll to get to your tummy.
true, true.
So, well, I have the honor to wrap up our conversation. But before we wrap it up, where can listeners find your work and follow you, and maybe even learn more about your upcoming projects?
Okay. My website is the main thing. It's gloriamescua.com. It's just my name.com. And also, I'm on Instagram as Gloria Amescua Writer, the same thing, Gloria Amescua Writer on Facebook. I'm sort of on Blue Sky, but I haven't quite figured out how to make that work too well for some reason. And I was on Twitter, but basically I'm not anymore. Um, so those are the ones I'm focused on, Instagram and Facebook, and then obviously I'll be putting things up on my website as they come forth. So
Thank you so much, Gloria, for all your insights, for sharing your journey and everything you have graciously given us with your time here today. Alicia, Silvia, any remarks, any last comments you'd like to make?
No, it was just great.
Well,
Awesome.
fabulous. So now what we have is just our three rapid fire questions. These are questions that we ask of every guest on the show, and they're just meant to be very quick, fun, what comes to mind. So the very first question, Gloria, is can you share with us something that even your biggest fans might not know?
they might not know that I played alto sax and was in the University of Texas Longhorn Band, and was also in their alumni band for many years. I kind of gave that up when I gave my alto sax to my son and his family. But yeah, that was a big part. Music was a big part of my life. So,
Thank you.
All right, and I have a second question. If others were to describe you in 1, 2, or 3 words, what would those words be?
kind, um, hardworking, um, I'm trying to think of third one.
That's fine. No, 2
1,
is
2,
good.
or 3. So it
1
doesn't.
or 2. So you gave, or 3, you gave us the 2, kind, and we could tell kind and hardworking showed through your conversation today. Believe me.
And the last rapid fire question is, what book or books have had the most impact on your life?
Okay, this is going to sound strange, but The Wizard of Oz, I read when I was in elementary school, and it was the first big book that I read. And I was just taken away with the fantasy of it and just, just really love that. I mean, others are kind of like To Kill a Mockingbird, which influenced so many people, and the injustice there, and how all of that they had someone standing up for him and so on. The Once and Future King. I mean, these, you know, and then as I said, Carmen Foya's book really had an influence on me too. The Sonnets of a Human Being, um, for a human being, because of some beautiful poetry in it, but also because of what she was writing about, the content and how beautifully she wrote it, and that she wrote Spanish in with the English, and all of that had a pretty big impact on me.
Oh, wonderful books. Well, thank you so much. This brings us to the end.
Well, thank y'all so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to have been here and get to know you. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Gloria, for being here. Thank you so much for a wonderful interview.
Thank you.
In the next episode, Gabby Bell,